You think you've seen mental seasons? Hold on to your hats, because this is going to be an absolute bloody roller coaster. Right now, over on stream, we are, of course, doing the transfer window at the start of Season 8, so do be sure to join us over there once you've watched this. Our budget is, needless to say, obscene, but we'll talk more about the exact numbers a little bit later. The VODs of all the streams can, of course, be found over on the second channel, which is linked in the description. They go up a day after every single stream. And also, thank you for the support on the Asian video. I was kind of blown away by that as well. We do, in theory, have another one coming out this Friday, should all things go to plan. Got a tactics video coming out in between as well, talking about the tactic we're using right now. Just needed to get some more data to prove that it wasn't a fluke. But for now, Season 7 of Building a Nation in Hungary with MTK was one of hope. It was our first season having 5 Hungarian sides qualifying for Europe. Now, this could mean one of two things. Either it could water down the coefficient that we were to gain, were a couple of them to do really poorly, or it could be the catalyst to boost us over the edge and give us the best season we've had so far. No more bush beating, let's jump into things. Let's talk about some of the players that have left the club this season, because believe me, there is a couple of stories here to get us started. That's right, Luboy. I'm so sorry. The first of whom was Jorge Nuno Passos. You remember him as one of the freebies we got from Rio Tinto in Portugal a couple of seasons ago. Only made 9 appearances for us. However, we managed to sell him to Milan for £9 million, which was, at the time, a transfer record sale for us. We could not believe our eyes. We were kind of overrun with right-backs. We'd already got a few loans for some of them, but there still wasn't enough space in the squad to have like 6 right backs. It just wasn't likely to happen. And Passos, I feel like, was the guy that was the most likely to leave us at this point. Then began a bidding war, and much like the situation with Riviere several seasons ago, where the Italian sides just came in and started bidding against each other over and over and over. It went from being, I think, 1.3 million initially to us getting 9 million up front in one lump sum from Milan. So £9 million for us right there is absolutely obscene money. And at that point, I kind of said, you know what? We're in good shape now financially. Extra cash. We can really kind of keep hold of any player we want for the rest of the window, and didn't have any plans to sell anyone else. Until this happened. So this is Patrice Omgba, who of course you'll be well aware of as one of our sort of backup. He played enough games for us after all, 33 league appearances, 1 goal for us in that time, but he was mostly a sort of third choice, I would say, overall. Like if you look at them as 2 little groups, we had the starting 2, the backup 2. He often alternated between either part of the backup pairing or even a third choice beyond that. And so Dortmund were putting little bids in of him every now and then, sort of up to £6 million, and I was thinking, you know what? I think this guy's got some decent value. I don't really want to sell him because I quite like this guy. So Dortmund then came in towards the end of the window with a bid that was, I believe, around about £8 million in total. And I kind of just jokingly said to chat, hey, watch this one, and added £20 million just to the upfront fee part. And I think it took the grand total to something like, well, £24 million. I just hit suggest, and they went, yeah, all right then. And I'm like, okay, we're going to bite your damn hands off, friendos. As for the loan farm, I mean, it sort of speaks for itself here. You can see the sheer amount of loans that have gone out this season. Now, bear in mind as well, these are not loans that are extensions. These are only new loans. Extensions don't show up in here unless the player actually comes back and changes to a different club. So all of the players that you're seeing on this list to my right are all players that have left this season on loan. Point being, the loan farm is getting ridiculous. It's up to, I believe, nearly 80 players. And I think this might be the first one of these saves for me where we're actually going to break the 100 loan barrier, because we are just farming it. But that's enough about that. What you really want is the transfers in. Obviously, we're going to gloss over a few, but there's some big ones in here that we need to talk about. First up is Anthony Mohamed. Came in from Enyimba Aba over in Nigeria for £900,000 in total. He's a bit ridiculous. He's gone out on loan to Ferencváros this season, and that should tell you everything. The fact that we're now getting loans to teams like Ferencváros, we're really moving up. Next is Dragan Radojacic, Serbian international striker now, signed for £3 million from Red Star. At the time, there was a sort of discussion about whether we'd overpaid, and I think our conclusion was, yes, we've overpaid, but actually it's kind of worth it, because £3 million was a lot for us to drop on a player. But with that kind of finishing, he's speedy, there lacks a little bit of the composure and stuff, but the point is, he's found a loan at Molfehevar and scored 23 times for them this season out on loan, and that really is worth everything to us. I'm happy to, like, subsidize these wages for him to keep scoring goals for a side that's playing in Europe for us. I think he's a good signing. Next we have Iuliu Farkashan. Now, I do apologize if I've screwed up his surname. Romanians do help me out. It's been struggling with me throughout this season so far. £2.8 million from Cluj. Now, again, is another player that I thought we might have overpaid for a little bit, but based on those goalkeeping attributes, I was really kind of happy to let this deal be done. We also signed J-Lo from a club called Lao in the Philippines. And yes, that is in fact his real name. Next up was a big one. Christian Ruiz, £1.4 million for the now Uruguayan international from Liverpool FC. The passing is excellent. The vision is excellent. His mentals are phenomenal. His physicals are fantastic. He actually might be the long-term player for that role for us. Point being, though, getting him out on loan to Ferencváros this season, getting him, like, surprisingly, actually only 14 starts for them. Maybe he might be one of the guys that I could bring back and actually bring straight straight into our first team because he looks tasty. And we then decided that wouldn't it be cool if we broke our transfer record? But I feel like it was worth it. This is Brandon Silva, 17 caps for Chile. We paid £3.5 million for him, but I don't think there's any argument about him. He might be one of the best signings, like pound for pound, in terms of attributes that we've made in this entire save, because he's already top quality, starting quality in this team. He's got that quality to go beyond that, and he's had a fantastic season. You can see down there, 17 goals and 13 assists for Brandon, 30 goal contributions. I think he can do better, truth be told, but he got basically on average what I wanted out of him this year, but I feel like he has the potential to go even better than that, and I'm looking forward to seeing what he can do in the future. He's still only 20. What a player. Next was Stanislav Suhi for £900,000 from Slovan Bratislava, another of these absolutely ridiculous strikers. We actually found two guys at Bratislava. There's a guy called Vesely who ended up joining Inter instead of us in the end, but this is one of the players we did pick up in Stanislav Suhi. You can see that the quality he's got. Great composure, great finishing, great physicals. Now, we've still been using Ehring probably more than him this season. They've sort of been competing for the role. Ehring's had some major injuries, and he's also annoyed at me because we didn't upgrade the training ground. Bear in mind, I asked the board, they said no. When the promise expired, he said, why didn't you upgrade the training ground? I said, you should probably take that up with the board. I'm the manager. What's that got to do with me? And he said, I don't know the way you've handled this. You should have done more. It's just an absolute trap. There's nothing you can do about it. I don't know why it's more prevalent in this year's game than last. Very annoying, though. We also signed Wiggly. Again, this is his real name. His name is Wiggly. Wiggly de Oliveira Pereira, who's actually wanted by Budapest for a transfer. The same Budapest that are at the moment in the process of signing Luka Jovic. Next up, £235,000 for Abdoulaye Seri, an Ivorian international. He's on loan at ESEC Mimosas at the moment because he was already over 19, so the homegrown stuff didn't matter. We were willing to keep him out on loan to get him some extra football there, but he will be coming back to us this season, and bloody hell, he is absolutely ridiculous. Then there was another insane piece of business. This is Hossam Abdelnabi, a free transfer from Wadi Degla. Now, obviously, he's on moon money. That's because we had to give him quite a big contract in order to... Egyptian players tend to require quite large wages because they're often on quite large wages at their original clubs and have quite high expectations. Fair play to them on that one, honestly. So he was in. He might be one of our highest paid players now, but look at the state of his development for this season. He has been insane. Average rating at times hasn't been fantastic from him, but I do still feel like he's either one of these players that's going to break out and be a star for us, or he's got that potential for an insanely expensive transfer to another club. Next, a player we looked at for quite a while. We actually scouted him when I believe he was just turned 17, so we kept an eye on him at that point, with the idea of signing him when he turned 18, because obviously players are much less likely to sign for you before that. So we kept an eye on him. We knew he was a player that we absolutely wanted, Thomas Velasquez, and when he did turn 18, we got that transfer bid in, 2.8 million in the end. We were expecting to pay upwards of 5 million. Nope, they went for 2.8 flat. He's basically been a starter for us since January. And the final sort of signing of this sort of transfer window per se is Juan Jose Terranova, another of the guys that we had to sort of wait on a little bit because I think he just signed a new deal. Picked him up for 1.3 million from Envigado in Colombia. Again, he's another one of these great players that can play on both sides of the defense. Him and Dala are so damn versatile and are brilliantly important for us as far as backups. I think great value deals have been done, and this team and nation are going to get stronger because you'll notice how many of these guys are out on loan, and those that weren't have gone straight into our first team. So we're getting stronger, Hungary's getting stronger, and players are even like declaring Hungarian citizenship now. For example, Enrique Pereira has now decided that he wants to play for Hungary, which I think is going to be sick.
And Pog, what up? Are we still going to McDonald's later? No, I'm afraid I've changed my mind. I've spent all my money on Venezuelan men. It's about time I told you about it. Like, so when the Only Juan's bill comes through...
But that concludes our transfers. I think it's been really successful. We'll talk more about player stats and how the team's been lining up later in the video. I realised I didn't show the sort of team breakdown last time, so I do apologise for that. I'll get it in this time, worry not. No need to beat around the bush, really, and go through the schedule in particularly great detail this time, because we are pretty much guaranteed to win it every year at the moment, although obviously the other teams will get stronger because we're going to be loaning them players and they can play against us. All of them can. So I'm actually surprised about that so far. We did lose a game this year, though, sadly. We drew and pulled out a late draw against Pushkas with a goal from Ehring, and then the very next match, I literally said before it, I guarantee we lose this one. And we did. It was against Kishvarda in the relegation zone as well. So yes, our unbeaten run came to an end after 77 matches. But we did still win the league by 27 points. Budapest actually came second this year. Budapest Honvéd pulled themselves right up into the top 3 this time around. So they will be in Europe for us next year. But we're going to have Ferencváros in the Conference League. And I tell you what, I think that's actually better for Hungarian football because they could absolutely kill it there. Kishvarda, of course, while playing in Europe this year, did manage to get themselves relegated. So that's not particularly great either. Just quickly, actually, it's Jury and Dios Jury who are the two sides coming up. Wow, they did it on goal difference in the end over Haladash in there too. So there you go. Now, as far as Europe went for us this season, we were coming in at the playoff round, so we only needed to get past one opponent to reach the group stages for, I believe, the 3rd consecutive season. And, well, we did exactly that. Our first tie, or the only tie we had to play, was against Maccabi Haifa, and we beat them 5-0 on aggregate. It took us a little while to get going in that first game, though. It took a Joaquin Tenore free kick in like the 93rd minute to give us the win, which is just nice for coefficient before a dominant performance at home put us through 5-0 on aggregate into the league phase. First up, hosting one of the weaker sides in Antwerp, 2 goals from Josef Ehring, 1 for Pereira, absolutely sunk them, and we got our first win of the group stage. Things were even better for us as our second game was also at home against one of the weaker sides in Trabzonspor this time, although they did actually knock Barcelona out of the Champions League last year, so they've clearly got some pedigree. Brown and Silva, and once again, Josef Ehring's goals put us in there with our second win in a row, 2 for 2, you'll have to see it. Then we travelled to Germany and played Wolfsburg off the park. Diaz and 2 goals from Ehring. Now, I will admit, as much as their goalkeeper got a 6.7 in this game, he is solely responsible for one of the goals that Josef Ehring got. But then he just picks the ball up, dumps it over the top. Just... Oh my God. Okay, so he pops it over the top. Results kept getting better and better with a 2-0 victory at home to Porto. We got some really plum draws in this season's Champions League. There's just no two ways about it. Getting a lot of good games at home and just winnable matches. 2 more goals for Enrique Pereira, and we finally beat Porto. It's the 3rd season in a row we've played them in the groups. We lost with those 2 stoppage time goals the first season. We drew last year, and now we finally get that win that we need. And that was 4 wins out of 4 and no goals conceded in Europe. That then all came to a massive muggy end, though, as we went to Stamford Bridge and got hammered 4-1. I say hammered. When you look at the stats for this game, you'll be wondering how on earth this was a 4-1 match, but it was one of those games where Chelsea just took their chances and we simply couldn't do it. Not the best performance from Real Virginia, but I don't feel like he was actually at fault for much. It's just FM punishing him because goals, I guess. But yeah, our first defeat in the Champions League, and we got put right back in our place. And then probably the most surprising result of all. We lost 2-0 against FC Copenhagen. Simon Gårdsvold scored twice in the same minute. Literally, they scored the goal, we took the kickoff, they won the ball straight off of us, and he scored again. But to be honest, they thoroughly deserved it. They were really, really good. That was the best any team had played against us in Europe this season. We just were not up for it for whatever reason. And all of a sudden, we were looking behind us again. But we needn't have worried, as we pulled off one of the best results we've had in the entire save for me, honestly, because just a truly fantastic performance against Milan. 2-1 win in the end, 2 goals from Ehring, but we played them off the park. This is the kind of performance that we needed to grab our 5th result, gave us 15 points on the board at this point, and we were looking really, really good. Still had a chance at getting that top 8 if we really, really pushed it on the final day. Except, of course, we'd faced Real Madrid on the final day, who had won every game so far. And honestly, Real Virginia did a pretty good job at keeping the scoreline down. 2 goals from Jonas Wind, of all people, for Real Madrid, before Brandon Silva pulled out a late consolation for us, and it was nothing more than that. We were not really in this game at all. We're just not on that level of teams like Real Madrid yet, but that was fine. We got 15 points on the board. Unfortunately, it wasn't enough for top 8 this time, as we would have had to beat Real Madrid. That was not likely to happen. But still, we were very, very proud of ourselves. League phase itself actually ended up finishing like this with 11 points, 5 wins, 3 defeats, 15 points, just the 2 points outside there. Of course, Chelsea were the ones that snuck in, but that top 8 is looking pretty much like what you would expect. Now, our reward, though, for coming 11th was to face off against 19th place Dortmund after Christmas, a tie that we felt that we genuinely might have had a chance to finally reach a round of 16 in the Champions League. Unfortunately, that was not to be in this case, as Dortmund scored 2 goals through Asprilla and Knauf. Annoying goals, honestly. I feel like we were equally as good as them, if not slightly better in this game, and it took Enrique Pereira's goal to keep us in the tie at all. Very glad that he got that goal, though, just to give us hope in the home leg. Hope that we bloody well needed. Malero's goal, after being a first, he was substituted on at half-time. It was a bold move, but we just kind of needed something. Scored in the 62nd minute. I think he was then the player that was actually tackled by Victor Christensen for the red card for Dortmund, and then scored the winning penalty in the 105th minute of this match to knock Dortmund out, and put us through to the round of 16 for the first time in this save. Well, technically, not the first time in this save. We did actually qualify for it automatically, but it's the first time we'd won a knockout round game in the Champions League. We were stoked. Unfortunately, though, our reward for this was to face Real Madrid, the team that had humbled us so easily on the final day of the season. Then things went mad. MTK 3, Real Madrid 2, and it's not even like it wasn't a slightly deserved win. We pulled off a miracle here. Alaba missed a penalty after 12 minutes. I say 21 minutes. I say missed a penalty. Real Virginia pulled out an absolutely massive save. It should never have been a penalty because it was one of those weird match engine. It doesn't matter. Point being, we then took the lead through Alberto Malero yet again. Real Madrid then turned it around with Camavinga and Vinicius Jr., and we thought, okay, that's firmly us in the mud. But then Diaz's long-range strike, followed by Juan Alvarado from a corner, gave us a chance. Well, really, we figured we'd get hammered in the second leg anyway, but just coefficient, right? As this happened. After 27 minutes, Yoshitaka Nakanishi scored a header, 5'3", remember, from a free kick. They just left him unmarked, presumably because they didn't think he'd win a header. We took the lead at the Bernabeu through him, but then gave away a penalty of our own. David Alaba with the equaliser for Real Madrid at that point. But then we somehow put ourselves back in front again after Thomas Velázquez's goal in the 68th minute. Bear in mind, at this point, Real Madrid were down to 10 men as Camavinga was straight-redded for a 2-footed lunge in the centre of the park. So we gave ourselves a chance there. Then Fofana, unfortunately, gave an equaliser on the night for them. But But then, once again, Jarju from the penalty spot before Deo Upamecano got one back for them, but it didn't matter, as we, despite all of that, were able to progress 6-5 through to the quarterfinals, and we'd beaten Real Madrid. It was an absolute humdinger that we didn't deserve to make it through, but the point is you just get a bit of luck sometimes, right? Best part is in the next round, we drew Porto, a team we'd already beaten this season. It was a really tight first leg, but at the 85th minute, Henrique Pereira scored the winning goal for us to give us the lead to take back home to us. While Virginia had a really solid game in there as well. It was very, very even. Arguably, Porto probably the better side of this one, so for us to get that result was very, very fortunate. But there was nothing fortunate about the home game. 4-1. Just insane. They took the lead very early on through Sheldon to even things out, but then Silva got us back into the game on 36 minutes. But then as they poured bodies forward, it was just a case of picking them off. Goals for Alvarado, Yakubu Yeboah, and Stanislav Suhi finally wrapped up the result, a 5-1 aggregate victory, and MTK into their first ever Champions League semi-finals, where we would play Liverpool. Obviously an extremely tough side, we knew what to expect. But then we were given hope. A 1-1 draw at home against Liverpool, where they literally handed us the first goal.
Yeah, that's the thing. I feel like we'll still comfortably lose the second. Oh my God! Right then. This is just like the Real Madrid-Liverpool game.
Sadly, it was not to be, as 38-year-old Mohamed Salah scored an equaliser for Liverpool to sort of bail them out. They were the better side. Only just, but they definitely were the better side here. We then knew that we had to try to go to Anfield and find a way to win. Yeah.
Ehring forgot about the pop. Wow, that's... The return to sender. This usually means goal. Brahim Diaz. And it's Silva! He scores at Anfield, and Brandon Silva levels things up for MTK. We are not dead yet, Chatto. Brandon Silva. Or Jarju to Alvarado. Oh, he scored! Yes!
We were in absolute dreamland when that Alvarado goal came in. Yet again, João Virginia's goalkeeping won us this game for me. The fact that he made 12 more saves, he has just been the rock. Seriously, sign him in your saves. He is just perfect. If you can, get him. He's cheap a lot of the time. He's so unbelievably good. I don't know how it says he shaved 14 shots when they only had 13 shots on target. Cheers, FM. Point being, get him. He's fantastic, and he will bail you out of matches so damn often, and he did it yet again. So we progressed to our first ever Champions League final. It's season 7. Unfortunately, the final was just very much not our day. Lautaro Martinez put PSG ahead with their first shot. We tightened things up for the rest of the first half and did start to bring a little bit back. You can see here that we were kind of more relevant for this game, but just couldn't seem to create a lot ourselves. That was the biggest issue. Second half, we opened up a little bit more in order to create some stuff, but you can see with Mbappe's goal in first half stoppage time really did sink us before Joshua Kimmich's brilliant free kick from the edge of the box. I think 3-0 is very harsh in terms of the scoreline there, but we're just not prepared for our first Champions League final. We're not on that level yet. We fluked our way past Real Madrid and Liverpool to get here. We were just not on the level of these teams, and we probably won't see another Champions League final in this save for like 5 or 6 years, if not more. But it's just nice to finally reach one so quickly, and the points that came with it, man. Just, you have no idea. Just you wait. But now, let's turn our attention off of our accolades. Let's talk about the other Hungarian sides. Ferencváros this time got the privilege of playing in the Champions League qualifiers and were able to move themselves past Lugano relatively quickly. However, they did come a cropper when they were then faced with Ajax and were firmly dumped out back into the Europa League groups, but still very, very solid. Vardar were our lone representative in the Europa League, but luckily, as a result of them coming in at the playoff round, they were roundly beaten by Dinamo Kiev, but they were still, of course, then dumped straight into the Europa Conference League groups. Molfehvar were the side that started at the lowest of any of the teams in the second round of the Europa Conference League qualifiers, but at home and away, easy results against Alashkert saw them sail through to the next round. They were then drawn against Norrköping of the Swedish leagues and produced a relatively similar result, winning home and away to progress to the final round of qualifying. They were then disappointed to draw at home against Apollon Limassol, but then in the return leg in Cyprus, which we actually watched live on stream because there was something on the line here, they did manage to score a late equaliser to take things to penalties, which they then won. So they did progress to the group stages as well, making that 4 out of 5.
Like the growl or roar of other bears. Shape of male genitalia. Penis is very small.
Our final team in the qualifiers was Újpest, one of the strongest sides in Hungary, who comfortably dispatched Bravo to progress to the next round. And then honestly, they got extremely lucky with the draw as they ended up playing against Neftchi Baku from Azerbaijan and absolutely humped them home and away to progress 7-0 on aggregate and sail in to the group stages, making it 5 out of 5 for us. Ferencváros made their home ground a fortress in the Europa League group stage, winning all 4 of their home matches, getting 2 away draws as well, and that was enough to see them go into 12th spot. They weren't quite good enough to challenge for the top 8, but it's nice to see that we've got sides that can qualify out of the Europa League as well fairly comfortably, and their reward, of course, for that was to play against Sturm Graz, one of the teams that they had actually lost to. 2-2 draw away from home, followed up with a great 2-0 victory at home, saw them scream their way through to the next round of the Europa League, but it's really nice to see them get their revenge. In the next round, they drew Rouen and remarkably pulled off a brilliant 2-1 victory at home, which was then matched up with a lovely 1-1 draw in France to see them sail into the quarterfinals of the Europa League, thanks to Gabriel Menino's goal. But unfortunately, at this point, they would have to play a team for the second time this season again. But But this time, instead of being a weaker side, it was Ajax. And despite getting a narrow defeat in the Netherlands, we thought there might have been a chance for them at home. Sadly, that was not the case as Ajax humped them 3-0 and knocked them out. But for a side to reach the quarter-finals of the Europa League this year in Ferencváros, that was super huge for us, super huge for the coefficient. And remember, they're going to be in the Conference League next year. I think they could go all the way maybe, or certainly give it a run for the semis or even to the final. Kijvada were the one side that really struggled in Europe this year, finishing 28th in the Europa Conference League groups, just getting the one solitary win against FCFB. They were only 1 point outside of qualifying for the next round, which, considering how bad they were in the league with them getting relegated, is not entirely awful, so they did at least still contribute 1 win to our coefficient pot. Molfevar, on the other hand, were in a much better shape, coming 11th overall, getting 3 wins on the board, 10 points in order to qualify for the proper knockout round of the tournament. Budapest, on the other hand, were just different gravy, coming 4th in the Conference League with 5 wins out of 6. I mean, it shows you that, 5 wins out of 6 is only 4th, and the only team they lost to was 2nd place Slavia Prague. You'll see as well that Legia went the whole way as well. So clearly Budapest are definitely cut out for this. They will be, of course, in the Champions League next year, possibly more likely to be in the Europa League. So I feel like they could still give them a hell of a go, though, with them coming 2nd in the league. Molfevar's reward for coming 11th was Bati Borisov, but they did lose 1-0 in Belarus, but luckily pulled out a brilliant winner in extra time to sail their way through to the next round. I've said sail a lot of nautical terms today. Unfortunately, in the next round, they drew Celtic, and despite a valiant result at home in the 2-2 draw, they were simply not able to get the result away from home, losing by 4-2 and 6-4 on aggregate. They were massively the better side in that first leg and should have done better, but that's just how it goes. Budapest, in theory, were to have an easier time of it, but sadly actually managed to lose 2-1 in Cyprus before having to rely on penalties by winning 2-1 in the home leg in order to progress to the round of 16, no, not round 16, the quarter-finals of the Conference League. But unfortunately, they were then met with Celtic in the next round and lost both home and away by 1 and 2-0 respectively to bow out at the quarter-final stage. But us getting to the final, Ferencváros in the quarterfinals of the Europa League, and then Budapest in the quarterfinals of the Conference League. And this is the cool part. You'll like this. We were obviously beaten by PSG, the eventual winners of the Champions League. Ferencváros were knocked out by Ajax, who were, of course, the eventual winners of the Europa League. And Budapest were knocked out of the Conference League by, would you believe it, the eventual winners of the Conference League, Celtic. So all of our teams were knocked out by the eventual winners. In fact, even Molfevar were knocked out by the eventual winners, Celtic, as well. So that really does say something about the quality we've got. You have to win the damn thing to beat us. And what that means for us coefficient-wise is insane. 18.1 points this season for Hungary. Blown away by it. We just got an extra 0.2 for playing in the Champions League final as well. We do manage to leapfrog both Belgium and Scotland this year by considerable margins, actually. Now, we absolutely gapped them like crazy over the second half of the year. That will move us up to 8th spot in the coefficient chart. There's not been a year now in like 5 years since we haven't gained any ground. And I still think next year we can still gain ground. We are 4.2 points behind the Netherlands, but look at the year they're losing. We're losing a 6-point year. They're losing a 10-point year. We're going to be neck and neck at the start of the season. I think 7th is very much within our grasp next year. After that, it's going to take us a little while to start catching France and Portugal, but my God, if we can start trotting more seasons like this out, then I don't think we're going to be too far behind them very soon. Because look, we were the 3rd best coefficient this season, and the only reason France are above us is because PSG beat us in the final. We were 2nd going into it. That's the kind of numbers we're putting up at the moment, and they're just getting better. I think we see multiple Hungarian side win Europa Leagues, or even Conference League. More likely Conference League, but I think we finally get someone to win a Europa League too. I'm excited about the progress in this. It's season 7. I'm so damn excited, man. As for the way we've lined up mostly this season, it's been predominantly airing through the middle, although Suhi has played a fair amount of time in that role as well. Diaz, of course, in behind has been fantastic, with Navarro being the sort of backup in that role. Malero has had a bit of a breakout year. I'll show you the stats briefly in a second to talk about that, but it's mostly been him and Silva, with Pereira and Yakubu being the sort of backup and rotation, but still playing loads. We've been trying to go with the first choice of Yoshi and Velázquez there, of course, but Effie and Ari coming in to back up those two guys up as well. And Dai is still sort of the starter, but with very many options as well in terms of Terra Nova and various other players as well with various loans. Alvarado, Montiel and Moores have kind of alternated around those three, with Jarju filling in when we need to. Might need to grab another centre-back if we can do in the summer. Abdul Nabi and Dala alternating depending on what type of team we're playing against. Abdul Nabi's far more aggressive and outgoing, whereas Dala's more of a defensive player. And of course, Raul Virginia in goal. Just an absolute monster of a player. Awono's found less time this year to play, but that's generally speaking been our lineup for the most part this year, and I think they've done a fantastic job. In terms of stats, you can see that Ehring certainly not hitting the numbers that he did last year. 36 overall, Suhi with 24 in behind him too, but then Brandon Silva with 17 is a really nice response. Really enjoyed that from him. Pereira grabbing 14, Navarro with 10, which is good. Diaz really has struggled this year, just the 7 when he should have had 12 I would argue more than that, honestly, but 12 would have been the minimum for him. He's really struggled in front of goal. Still chipped in 15 assists. Next year, I would expect the squad to change slightly as we do start to strengthen things up a little bit. You might even find a few of these guys potentially move out on loan to some other Hungarian sides as they're slowly phased out by even better players if we can find them, given that we've got an enormous amount of money. The current budget we're working is 26 million, but look at that wage budget, 265 grand a week. That is a lot of money. We will not be able to spend that, and we won't be trying to spend that either, but we've got a lot of money to spend and an awful lot of players to look at. And finance-wise, we're in Moonland right now. 92 million pounds in the bank financially because, of course, of the Champions League success, getting like 10 million pounds per round of progression that we made. In addition to that, think of the sales as well. We made 34 million pounds worth of player sales this season as well. So we're in very, very stable financial condition. The board are potentially under a takeover as well at the moment, so that could change for next season too. And we are still in the process of sorting out a new stadium. Nothing's really been updated from that since I talked to you guys about it last season. Currently, the game is still saying, what is it still saying? You see what I mean? The process of board takeover. It's still saying searching for site, but it is planned a capacity of 16,000, which would be a nice size stadium, hopefully with some expansion potential there too. But we don't know when that's going to happen because it's taken a full year for them to do nothing. Our aims for this year are simple. We want to just keep going. We're not going to achieve what we did this year again. I want to just make the knockouts of the Champions League again, do our thing, but really focus on trying to get those other Hungarian sides to succeed. Because if they have another season like this one, we're in for a bloody treat. So if you have enjoyed this, drop a like, that'll be fantastic. Join us over on stream for some loveliness, and I'll see you guys very, very soon. Enjoy your nation building.